Wow. So what an amazing, amazing opportunity. This is Sebayt Queen, Dr. Neat, and it is such an honor and pleasure to be in this space, actually doing this particular interview. Why is this space so significant? On June 10th, 2010, I will never forget. I had fibroid tumors and had had them for 17 years at the time. And I was using another product that was not resolving my challenge. I was given the name of the Forgotten Foods, and this was a Saturday. And I was actually in my home in Marietta, Georgia, and I felt lightheaded. And so I called the Forgotten Foods, and this nice lady answered the phone. And I told her, I said, I need your products. I have fibroid tumors. She said, well, it's Saturday. I just happen to be in the office and I'll ship them out to you on Monday. I said, no, ma'am, that won't do. And I was almost in tears. She didn't know how lightheaded I was. She didn't know that I had been, at the time, having a cycle 7 to 9 months straight per year because I had 40 pounds worth of fibroids in my womb. And I told her, I said, ma'am, I'm not going to be able to wait until Monday. And she said, well, we're in Atlanta. If you're able to get to us, then I'll be glad to give you your product. And I said, okay. And then I got off the phone and I started crying. She didn't know how lightheaded I was. I was actually staying downstairs in my 2-bedroom townhouse because I would get dizzy going up and down the steps. And so I am a driver by nature. I drive back and forth from Atlanta to Jersey on a regular basis. And when I lived in Virginia, back and forth from Norfolk to Memphis, which is 15 hours by myself in one shot with no problem. But on this day, because I felt so lightheaded, because I had lost so much blood, I was afraid to drive. And she said that I needed to get to her. I called everybody that was in my circle, and none of my circle was available. And so I got in my car and I began to look at the highway signs. I don't even pay attention to signs, and this was before we had GPS and all of that. And with tears streaming down my eyes, I had to make the decision whether to take 285 north or 285 south just to be able to get to her home. And I winged it. I'll never forget it. I just picked whatever. And I had to actually think about keeping my car in the lane. And I had to actually think about following instructions to get to her house. I remember printing out MapQuest. That's how long ago it was. And I finally got off of the exit and I came to the office, and there were about 20 steps. And it grabbed my heart. I said, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to get up these steps? And I'm lightheaded. And so I just stood and I looked at this nice lady at the top of the steps. And I had tears streaming down my face, and I held on to the rail and I walked up the steps. At that time, because I had been being given double doses of Depo, which is a steroid, because I couldn't get the bleeding to stop, I had ballooned up to 300 pounds and was still bleeding. And so as soon as they got me in the house, they sat me on the couch, and for an hour and a half, these people who did not know me gave me all of these tonics back to back to back to back. And for the first time in about 3 or 4 months, I had clarity of thought. Now I was still working 40 to 50 hours a week, but nobody really could tell, but I knew. And suddenly my mind was clicking again. And I began to share with them everything that was going on, what the doctors had said. All they'd said was, just have a baby or just get a hysterectomy. Well, neither one of those was a viable option. And so I began with taking every day for 10 months straight. Every morning and every night, the Miracle Emerald Greens. Now, back in the day, there was only the powder. There was not the tincture, and we didn't even have the 10th power at that time. So we then moved it up to me doing that 3 times a day, lunch, dinner, and breakfast. And that became a part of my life. And I started to watch my color come back because I was draining so much blood out of my body. I looked kind of a pale. I looked dull and grayish. So I noticed my vibrancy coming back. We had Sacred Womb at that time, before Sacred Womb Fibroid Free came out. And so I started doing that 3 times a day. And I began to see a difference in my cycle. All right, so what was so exciting? So we were doing the Emerald Greens 3 times a day. We were doing the Sacred Womb Tonic 3 times a day. So then we started doing the Majestic Mushrooms, and it actually was just a powder. That was before they made it into a tincture. And so 3 times a day I was doing that. So I was doing it with hot coconut milk. So we would take the hot coconut milk and then put in the scoops of the Majestic Mushrooms. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with the properties and principles of mushrooms, but what mushrooms do, they actually go in because they are a fungus, and it's a fungus, it's a fungus, whatever. So it is a fungus, and what it does is any type of abnormal cells, it surrounds the cell and it actually chokes the life out of the cell. And so all of those cells that were running around in here that were contributing to everything that was off, that's what it did. So I started learning to use that with anyone who had any types of tumors, whether they were cancerous or benign. Fibroid tumors are benign tumors. And so literally, all of those herbs together. And then I started learning about raw foods. So as I learned the herbs and I started studying with Cayenne Baratunde, and I'm asking, well, what does this one do? What does that one do? Then I started researching all of the herbs. It really, really got me interested. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. So long story short, that 40-pound mass became soft. And starting, so it was a year process because I started with them June 2010. By August 2011, that was the first month that I actually had a regular 28-day cycle. So now every 26 to 28 days, like clockwork, depending upon whether or not we've got a solstice, an equinox, a supermoon, I am right on the money. I can count things by it. Never ever have run into any fibroid issues. I learned about raw foods, and in me learning about raw foods, it made it so that I could eat the foods that complemented the herbs. If you are not going to stop doing what caused you to have the disease or disorder from the beginning, then it's counterintuitive to get the herbs. You're working against yourself. But if you say, I want to hold on to my healing, go to www.theforgottenfoods.com and find out, what can I do to help me? Sometimes it's not just one herb. Sometimes it's a series of herbs. It's a family of herbs. But you've got to decide that you're going to be committed to your own healing, that you're going to make sure that you stay on it. It's not a one-hit wonder. So you're not going to just get a one-time 30-day supply. You're going to want to continue on it and then do maintenance after that so that it doesn't return. You have to make the decision to change what you're eating as well, so you don't contribute to your own delinquency. So again, this is Sebayt Queen, Dr. Neat. This has been absolutely amazing, and I appreciate the opportunity to share with you. Have a great and prosperous day.